So I added outfits to the NPCs in the starting town of IDKLOL, my 3D ECS-based RPG. There's a bartender with vest and slacks, and a shady merchant in a trench coat, so you can tell them apart now, and a couple of patrons in the pub, which is where the player starts. I also made some signs to differentiate the buildings so you can tell where they are across town. Then there's the alchemist with a purple robe, and she'll have a potions table and alchemist table in here. Then we have the tailor in a red and white dress, and she'll have a loom and a tanning rack. I also added some peasant houses with a bed and table and chair. And the blacksmith now has an apron and a beard. And he'll have a forge and an anvil in here. So I still have quite a few 3D models that I need to make in Blender. The gray stone houses are unassigned, so I still need to customize those. But that's pretty much it for now. Now to export the clothing, I'll open up the Make Human open source project. You can download the source code straight from GitHub and use Python 3 makehuman.py to run the project, or you can download the executable from their website. So I'll put a link to that in the description, and let this load. Once it's done loading, go to the Community tab and search for clothing. There's quite a few different outfits here. Most of them are Creative Commons. Some require attribution, so just make sure to read the license. So I'll search for medieval dress for the tailor and download it. And then I'll go to hair and download the female bow tie. And once they're downloaded, you can go to the Geometries tab and select them from the list on the right. So the medieval dress and the go to the hair tab and then select the bow tie hair. So it's not actually metallic when I open it in Blender, so I'm not sure why the texture is doing that, but that's pretty much how the model will look. Now I'll change the gender to female so the shape of the dress is correct, and then go to Files, Export, and select Collada file type. Make sure the feet are on the ground and set the scale units to meter so it's the right size. And then set the file name and export the object. Now I want to import the outfits into GoMakeHuman, which is an open source project on GitHub. So the project comes with a human.blend file. this has the body with a couple pieces of clothing, and under the data tab, which is like a green triangle, you can see the shape keys for the body, so you can change these directly in Blender. So if I change the OB slider, it does clip through the clothes, but the dress and shirt that come with it also have the shape keys mapped, so you can increase the OB slider there as well, and now it fits the shape. So I'll set those back. And go ahead and hide the clothing. Now I want to import the Collada file that we exported from Make Human, which is in the Documents folder by default. And I'll move it up. So it lines up with the model. Since this is from a different version, it'll be slightly off. But that's probably about right. Then I'll delete the base and eyes objects from the import. And I want to make the clothing a bit wider. So you can change the transform under the object properties. Until it fits. I'm not going to worry about getting it perfect, but just trying to reduce the clipping for now. Okay. So that looks relatively good. And now I want to use Control A to apply the transform. So this resets all of the location, rotation, and scale modifiers. And I'll do the same for the wig. And now you'll want to, under the parent, use the eyedropper to select the skeleton object, like so. And instead of exporting this to the GLB object, I can import directly from the blend file, since Go.4 is integrated with Blender now. So I'll just save this and put the blend file directly into the car edit meshes for gen folder. So now I'll open up the character generator in Go.4, which I made a video about converting this from 3.5 to 4. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Then I'll go to the meshes for gen folder, and I have the gomakehuman.blend file in here, so double click this to re-import the blend file, which does take quite a bit of time, as you can see, and it'll get, as the file gets bigger, it's going to take more time, so adding more clothes will be a problem, probably. But for now, I'll go to the medieval dress object and enable save to file, set the path to character edit meshes for gen, change the type to all files, and save it as medievaldress.mesh. And I'll do the same thing for the hair bow tie model. Save it in the meshes for gen and change the file type. And now I'll re-import this file, so that will take a little while. Now the hair bow tie and medieval dress mesh files have been created in the meshes for gen folder just from importing the blend file, so they're linked if it ever changes. Now I'll open up the generate.tscn file, and in the editor increase the clothing array size. So I'll add 2 new elements for the hair and dress. Set the string names, and these correspond with the mesh names, so they have to be exactly the same. So I'll save that and run the current scene, which is the generate scene in the meshes for gen folder. And this will generate the meshes for all of the clothing in the meshes folder. So I have the medieval dress mesh here and the hair as well. So now I'll make a new scene and drag the medieval dress from the meshes folder directly into the new scene. Right click and make the medieval dress the scene root and delete the 3D node. And this needs to be renamed to the file name. So I'll save that in the character edit meshes folder. And I'll make another scene for the hair bow tie mesh. Make this the scene root. Delete the node. And rename the mesh. Save it in the meshes folder. I also need to reset the transform on both of those so they line up where they were in Blender. So now I want to set the texture in Godot. So from the Make Human Data Close folder, I'll copy the medieval dress texture and paste it into the character edit meshes mats folder, and then navigate to the hair and copy the hair image as well. Let those re-import into Godot. And now in the mesh scene, I can set the surface material override to a new standard material 3D. So first, you may notice the transparency from the inside. That's because the cull mode is set. So go ahead and disable the cull mode, and now it is solid from both sides. Then under albedo, set the texture to the image file, and now you can see the texture is correctly mapped to the dress. So I'll do the same for the hair. Make a new standard material and set the cull mode to disabled. Then drag the texture into the albedo like so. Next, I'll open up the character edit GUI scene, and I'll add a new checkbox for testing. So move that down, duplicate the checkbox and move it down, set the text and rename it, and then I'll disconnect the signal and make a new function to test clothes toggled. And here I'll equip the medieval dress and the hair bow tie meshes. And now if I run the scene and toggle the test, you can see that it does equip the clothing to the model. So the default woman does still fit in the clothing because I made it a bit wider, but if you slide the other body sliders, it will clip through the clothing because I haven't set the shape keys yet. So I'll just use the default female body for the NPCs for now, so that shouldn't be an issue. But there is a tutorial for making the blend shapes and attaching the clothes to the skeleton in the project and on his YouTube. So I'll put links to that, and eventually I'll get the blend shapes attached to the clothing. But now I can move this into my main project so I can make the tailor NPC. So I'll close the character generator project and go to the meshes folder. So the meshes for gen are just for generating the actual meshes, and I don't need to copy these into my project. So just from the meshes folder, I'll copy the medieval dress, mesh and TSCN, and the hair, mesh, and scene into my entity human meshes folder. Then I'll go to the mats and copy the textures. And I also need the shapes.dat, which is in the car edit root folder. So this was generated when I ran the generate scene in the project, and I'll paste that into the meshes folder as well. And now I should be able to open up IDKLOL and let it import the new resources. Once it's done loading, I'll go to the medieval dress scene and try to open it, but it throws an error because I copied them over. So if you right click the file and click edit dependencies, it'll show the paths that are not loading. So I need the medieval dress mesh, and the texture, which is in the mats folder. And now I can open up the dress in IDKLOL. So I'll do the same thing for the hair. Right click and edit dependencies. Link to the hair mesh and material. And now you can open up the hair as well. And now I can open up the spawn list from the library folder. So I'll add a new constant for the clothier NPC and define it in the data list. So I'll make a new entry, set the base scene to the human, set the name to clothier, and she will be a female, and I'll set the clothes to medieval dress and hair bow tie, like so. So now I need to add a building for the clothier. So I'll make a town clothier constant and define the building data in the list. I'll set the spawn list to the clothier NPC, and I'll add a table. This will also have a loom and a leather rack and a cabinet, but I haven't made those 3D models yet. So then I'll set the building material. So the walls are red brick and the roof is the dark planks, like the rest of the shops in town, which is different from the houses, which are oak and thatch, so it's easier to differentiate. And then I needed an icon for the sign on the building, so I went to thenounproject.com, the Noun Project, and found an icon for thread. So this is Creative Commons. You just have to attribute the artist, which I've done in my README, so I have links to all the resources there. But I can set the clothier icon to the thread, and then in the town map I'll set the 5th largest building in town to a clothier shop. So in the building build function, if the structure has an icon in the blueprint, it generates a hanging sign entity and sets the position according to the direction of the door, so it's placed over the front of the building. And the hanging sign itself I made in Blender, and it has 3 materials exported. As you can see, if you make a new standard material there, it overwrites all the wood, so you can make it a different texture. But the icon is on the first override, and to change that, you just reassign the albedo texture, like so. And then I made sure the resource is local to scene, so it only affects the single sign and not all of them. So now when I go to make a new game, it will generate a clothier building along with the other shops. So there's the thread sign, which makes it easier to find. And we have the NPC houses, and the grass texture is for the unassigned buildings, so they're easy to identify. But here we have the clothier in her dress with the hair, and she's got a little table in here. So that's pretty much the entire process of making new NPCs and adding the clothing. Of course, I'll have to do the shape keys and the skeleton as well, but I figured I just wanted to get something as a placeholder for now, so that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.